Lily Patterson stood frozen at the head of the conference table, her blonde hair falling in neat layers around her shocked face, the words hanging in the air like a cruel joke. Before continuing, please subscribe and write in the comments which city you are from. And don't forget to rate this story. What do you want me to do? His barely audible voice broke the silence. At the other end of the table sat Richard Montgomery, his father's oldest friend and the family lawyer. He was carefully adjusting his glasses. The terms of your father's will are clear, Lily, he began. To inherit the Patterson Media Group, you must produce an heir within the next year. Zach Taylor, Lily's best friend and marketing director, choked on his coffee. This wasn't just a shocking announcement, it was a blow that shouldn't be ignored. Richard continued, ignoring the confusion in the room. The heir must be Blake Reynolds. The name hit Lily like a drop of ice. Blake Reynolds, tech genius, fierce competitor, and the man who'd spent years trying to buy her father's company. The same man who, over champagne at a charity gala, had told her father's empire was a dinosaur waiting to be hit by a meteorite. This is crazy. Lily began pacing nervously. My dad hated Blake. It doesn't make any sense. Richard placed a sealed envelope on the table. Your father left this for you. He knew you'd be in shock. Lily opened the letter with a trembling hand. Her father's handwriting, once so sure, now looked shaky. My dear Lily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. You may think I'm crazy, but trust me, Blake Reynolds is not the monster you imagine. Our families aren't just connected by work, we share a common history. This union, both professional and personal, was inevitable. The company needs his innovation, and he needs your heart. You'll understand. With all my love, your father. Lily clutched the letter as if it might hurt her. This is crazy. I'm not going to have a child to inherit a company. Even if it's worth billions. Then the company will go to Blake, Richard said quietly. Lily's jaw dropped, and at that moment, the conference room door opened. As if summoned by dark forces, Blake Reynolds himself entered, tall, with angular features and piercing blue eyes. He was as confident in himself as in an expensive suit that fitted him perfectly. Sorry for the delay, he said, not sounding guilty. The drive was terrible. Lily's blood freezes. Did you know that? Blake's smile disappeared as her gaze shifted between her and Richard. You knew what? He asked. I was just explaining to Lily the terms of her father's will, Richard interjected. As Richard stated the strange terms, Blake's expression changed from puzzlement to utter disbelief. This is a joke, right? Blake asked, loosening his tie. Unfortunately not, Richard replied, pulling out some legal documents. Zach, who had remained silent until this moment, finally spoke. Lily, are you seriously considering this? Of course not, she replied curtly. Blake studied her face intently, as if trying to figure out what this woman was hiding. So you're just going to let your father's business, his legacy, end up in my hands? Lily couldn't help herself. Better than in your bed. Blake laughed and sat down at the table. Listen, he said, looking at her. I don't like it any less than you do, but I respect what your father built. I've always respected this building, despite our differences. You've been trying to ruin this for years. Lily snorted. I was trying to elaborate on that, Blake corrected. There is a difference. Richard tried to stop their argument. There could be a compromise, he said. It doesn't require marriage, just a child. And modern science offers many ways to achieve this without resorting to traditional methods. Lily and Blake exchanged horrified looks. Are you serious? She asked. Blake ran his hand through his dark hair. This is crazy. The silence hung between them like a weight. The decision was unthinkable. Billions of dollars, thousands of employees, his father's legacy. I need time to think, Lily said finally. You have exactly 1 week. Richard replied that they had to keep going, no matter what. As Lily gathered her things to leave, Blake suddenly stood in her way. For what it's worth, he said softly, your father once told me that you were his greatest creation. You're better than any company he ever started. Something in his tone made her look up. For a moment, she read something unexpected in his eyes: vulnerability. "A week," she said, stepping around him. "And don't think it changes anything." As the door closed behind her, Lily leaned against the wall. Her mind was racing, and the only thing that seemed absolutely clear was that her life just got a lot more confusing. Her downtown loft had never felt so cramped. For the past 3 days, she'd been pacing the wooden floor, ignoring calls from her office and devouring a surprising amount of mint chocolate chip ice cream. "You're going to have to dig a hole in the ground soon," said Megan Cruz, her pragmatic cousin, who had arrived that morning with supplies and unsolicited advice. "I think," Lily whispered. "You're panicking," Megan corrected her with a smile, setting down her cup of tea. "We need an escape route." Lily collapsed on the couch. "Richard has verified the will. It's not subject to change." "Then why not just do it?" Megan suggested cautiously. "Use the clinic, perform the procedure, save separate lives." "Separate custody isn't the end of the world if Blake Reynolds is." Lily shook her head. "That man. He's impossible. And it's not just the child. It's my father, trying to manipulate me even from beyond the grave." Megan sipped her tea thoughtfully. "Your father was many things, but he wasn't cruel. There must be a reason." There was a knock at the door. Lily opened it and found Blake, not his usual stern self, in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He was holding a thick folder in his hands. "We need to talk," he said. "How did you find my address?" Lily asked curtly. "I'm a tech genius, remember?" When she didn't smile, he sighed. "Richard gave it to me. Can I come in?" Megan, who had suddenly appeared next to Lily, raised an eyebrow. "There he is, the daddy candidate?" "Megan," Sifla Lily. Blake extended his hand. "Blake Reynolds." "Megan Cruz, cousin and voice of reason." She shook his hand and, grabbing her bag, added, "I'll leave you alone. Lily, call me later." Once Megan left, Blake stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room. "Nice place," he murmured. "What do you want, Blake?" Lily asked, crossing her arms. He placed the file on his coffee table. "I've done my research. I think I've found a solution that will work for both of us." "I'm listening," Lily said, leaning back on the couch. Blake spread out the papers. "Option 1, we go the clinical route. No romantic relationship, just biology and legal agreements." He pointed to the contract he'd prepared. "Custody terms, financial obligations, everything." Lily glanced at the documents, surprised by the level of thoroughness and fairness. "Option 2, Blake continued, flipping through another sheet of paper. "We pretend." "For what, exactly?" "For the whole story. We pretend to be dating, we announce the pregnancy, we present a unified image to the board. Once you take control of the company, we break up and I'm out of here." Lily frowned. "It's a scam." "Really?" Blake chuckled. "The will calls for an heir, but doesn't specify what genetics he'll need. We could adopt. In a year, with no trace of blood relationship, the scandal would be minimal. But I was thinking," Blake continued, "and that brings us to the third option." He slowed down and paused. "We're really trying." "Try what?" Lily asked, even though she already knew where he was going with this. "Let's try to build a relationship," he said seriously. "Let's really try. Let's see if there's anything worth developing." Lily laughed. "Is that your plan? Fall in love on demand?" "Look at it from a logical perspective," Blake said, sitting down next to her. "We're both ambitious and successful, and we care about your business. Perhaps there's a compatibility we haven't thought of because we've always been competitors." "This isn't a business deal," Lily said, standing up to put some distance between them. "No, it's not a deal," Blake agreed in a softer voice. "But your father thought we had potential. Have you ever wondered why?" Lily froze as she remembered her father's letter. Even if she were even slightly interested, which she wasn't, how could she trust him? He'd been trying to take control of her company for years. Blake stood up, his voice low and strained. "Have you ever wondered why I didn't succeed?" I had the resources, the technology, the connections. What do you mean? Lily asked again, not understanding what he was talking about. I'm saying your father and I had an agreement, Blake said with cold assurance. The takeover attempts were strategic. Strategic? Lily repeated, her voice trembling with puzzlement. Your father was diagnosed 3 years ago, Blake said softly, as if each word carried weight. He knew he wouldn't have time to waste, and all this time, our competition has been an excuse to groom you to take over sooner than expected. Lily felt the ground give way beneath her feet. No, he would have told me. He would? Blake looked at her with a cold, but slightly sad gaze. The one who protected you from all the difficulties, who allowed you to believe he would always be there? Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. Come on, Blake, come on. Blake gathered his papers and paused in the doorway as he left. Well, if that means anything to you. I respected him. And you do too, more than you can imagine. When the door closed, Lily collapsed on the floor. Her mind was racing. If Blake was telling the truth, then everything she thought she knew about her father, about her future, was a carefully constructed lie. The phone vibrated. It was a message from Zach. Board meeting tomorrow. Reynolds will be there. What's the agenda? Lily stared at the screen. She had less than 24 hours to decide the fate of her father's company, her own destiny, and it seemed, the family legacy. Suddenly, a determined desire awoke within her. She grabbed her laptop and began to write. If Blake Reynolds was playing, so was she. By morning, she'd have her own offer, one that would protect her business and her heart. But something inside told me. Or maybe his father was right? The Patterson Media boardroom was tense. The 14 council members sat around the huge table, their eyes darting from Lily to Blake, who sat at the opposite end. I've called this emergency meeting. Lily began, standing in her formal navy suit, ready to confront the unusual circumstances of my father's will and propose a solution. A murmur ran through the room. News of Harold Patterson's strange stipulations spread quickly, and the company's stock began to fluctuate wildly. Excuse me, Ms. Patterson, intervened Warren Bentley, the longest-serving board member. This situation is unprecedented. The board needs stability, not family drama. I agree, Lily replied coldly, which is why Mr. Reynolds and I came to an agreement. Blake raised his eyebrows. This was not part of their last conversation. Lily continues, Blake Reynolds will join Patterson Media as Chief Innovation Officer for the next 6 months. During this time, we will work together to modernize our digital platforms while maintaining journalistic integrity. The board members exchanged glances. And the personal part of your father's will? Warren asked cautiously. This will remain personal, Lily replied firmly. Just know that we are exploring all options to respect my father's wishes and ensure the future of the company. What does she mean? Blake interjected, standing up. That's why we're dating. Lily gave him a look that could freeze fire. A date? Warren repeated, visibly incredulous. Yes, Blake confirmed, approaching Lily. We decided to give ourselves 6 months to see if we were compatible before making a final decision. A heavy silence reigned in the room until Zach, sitting next to Lily, broke it with a laugh. Excuse me, but are you serious? You two, who couldn't stand each other for years, are now dating? People change, Blake replied simply. Prove it, retorted Diana Miller, head of digital. Lily's heart began to beat faster. This wasn't how she'd planned to conduct this meeting. Blake turned to her, his expression unreadable. Then, with seemingly deliberate slowness, he took her hand and brought it to his lips. Some things, he said softly, without taking his eyes off Lily, don't need proof. With a single movement, an unexpected current ran through Lily's body. She jerked her hand away, flushed with embarrassment. If there are no further questions on the trade deal, she said, trying to regain her composure, the meeting is adjourned. As the board members filed out one by one, Zach stood still. Seriously? He asked when they were alone. This is Blake Reynolds, a man with emotional depth worthy of a technical manual. It's temporary, Lily assured him. Just for work. Yeah. Zach groaned. Like that kiss on the hand, just for work too? It was just for show. Lily insisted, even though her skin was still red where Blake's lips had touched hers. Well, your show's on Broadway tonight, Zach reminded her. The Gardeners Fund Gala, remember? Half the industry will be there, including all our big advertisers. Lily groaned. She'd completely forgotten about the gala, her first public event since her father's death. Great, she murmured after Zach left. Just then, Blake reappeared at the door. Did it go well? He asked. This wasn't planned. Lily met his gaze. Dating? Really? Blake shrugged. That's more believable than just an affair. The board needed confirmation. How about a kiss on the hand? Lily narrowed her eyes, and a slight smile crossed Blake's lips. Methodist actor. Lily rolled her eyes. Well, if you're Methodist, maybe you should bring a tuxedo. We're having a gala dinner tonight. All set, Blake said. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. No need. We'll come separately, it'll arouse suspicion. Lily sighed. Okay, 7 p.m. Don't be late. When Blake appeared, Lily was desperately struggling with the clasp of her necklace. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It's open, she shouted, and the next moment, Blake entered, wearing a black tuxedo. He stopped, shocked by her appearance, a long emerald dress, her hair loose, her shoulders bare. You're... he began, but Lily interrupted him. Pretty, she continued, still struggling with the clasp. Blake placed the box on the table and approached her. I mean beautiful, he added. Before Lily could reply, his fingers touched her neck. He took the necklace that had belonged to his mother. May I? His voice was low, almost soft. Lily couldn't speak. She nodded. He carefully closed the clasp, his fingers lingering briefly on her skin. It's done, Blake said, stepping back. Lily turned to him, taken aback by the genuine admiration in his eyes. Thank you, she murmured. Blake took out a small box. I brought you a gift for tonight. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet adorned with a small charm, an antique typewriter. It was your dad's idea, he said with a small smile. He once told me you used to write stories on his old typewriter when you were little. Lily froze, looking at the bracelet, then looked at Blake. How do you know? She asked, trying to hide her growing confusion. Like I said, your father and I have been in contact more often than you think, Blake replied calmly. As he fastened the bracelet on her wrist, Lily felt doubt rising. Maybe Blake Reynolds wasn't quite the man she thought he was. At the gala dinner, they played their parts to perfection, laughing at each other's jokes, standing so close they were almost touching, and maintaining a united front to curious glances. When they reached the dance floor, even Lily had trouble remembering that it was all just an act. They believe in us, Blake murmured as they danced slowly. His hand was warm on her back. That's how it should be, isn't it? Lily replied, trying to ignore their naturalness. Tell me something, Lily, Blake said. If you hate me so much, why did you agree to this arrangement instead of just giving me company? Lily thought for a moment before replying. Because to me, this isn't just a business, it's my family's legacy. It's the last thing my father built. She paused. Why did you agree? You could have waited a year and taken it all for yourself. Blake squeezed her hand lightly. Maybe I wanted to see if your father was right about, what? About us, Blake replied softly. But before Lily could reply, the music stopped. As she approached the table, she noticed Zach watching them closely, looking worried. I need some air, she whispered, trying to push away her growing anxiety. Lily stood on the terrace, overwhelmed and distraught. Away from prying eyes, she breathed deeply of the cold night air. Everything was happening too fast, the company, Blake, the unexpected connection she was beginning to feel. It was all too much for her. Lily, we need to talk, Zach's voice said from behind him. She turned around and saw her friend, who looked unusually serious. What happened? It's about Blake, Zach said, his voice lowering. And your dad. There's something you need to know. What about my dad? Lily asked, feeling her stomach clench with worry at the sight of Zach's serious face. Zach glanced over his shoulder before continuing. I found something in the company archives. Emails exchanged between your father and Blake over the past 5 years. Blake mentioned they'd been texting. Lily began cautiously. Not just emails, Zach said, looking up. But plans. Detailed plans for the merger of Patterson Media and Reynolds Tech. Lily frowned. That doesn't make any sense. They were competitors. Publicly, yes, Zach agreed. But privately, they planned to revolutionize digital media together. Until Blake backed out 3 years ago when your father got sick. Zach took out his phone and showed her one of the letters. Lily scanned the message, recognizing her father's writing style, passionate and confident. Your dad begged him to reconsider. He said Blake was losing something special. Zach continued. But why did Blake refuse a lucrative merger? Lily asked almost quietly, not understanding. I couldn't figure it out, Zach replied. Until I found this. He slid the screen open, revealing another letter, this one from Blake to Harold. Harold, I can't do this to her. You know how I feel about her. But starting a business together is one thing, but what you're proposing now is a line I can't cross. Lily deserves better than a marriage of convenience, no matter how you frame it. She needs to fall in love for real, on her own terms, with a man who loves her for who she is, not for her company. Sorry, old friend, but the answer is no. Lily read the letter twice, her hands shaking. What does that mean? The answer came softly. It was Blake's voice behind him. This means that your father was a matchmaker long before his will. Lily turned around abruptly. Blake was standing in the doorway of the terrace, his face unreadable. How long were you there? Zach asked, his voice strained. Long enough, Blake replied, without taking his eyes off Lily. I think Lily and I need to talk alone. Zach looked at Lily, who reluctantly nodded in agreement. It's okay, Zach, she said. After Zach left, there was an awkward silence between Lily and Blake. You knew my dad wanted us to be together, Lily finally said. You knew, and you didn't tell me. Would you believe me? Blake asked, her voice soft but tinged with pain. Would it make any difference? You rejected his plan, Lily continued, ignoring his questions. You told me no. Blake approached, his gaze becoming more open. I said no to the arrangement, to your father's manipulation. Not to you. But now you make the decision, and it's yours too, Lily. Because now I really know you. The real you. Not just as Harold Patterson's daughter. Lily shook her head, trying to process everything she had heard. So all these years you've been trying to take over my father's business, it's just been for show? She asked quietly. Blake admitted it bitterly. Yes, your father thought that by making me the bad guy, he would push you to succeed, to prove your worth. And he was right. Look at what you've accomplished. He lied to me, Lily said, feeling anger rising inside her. Both of you. He protected you, Blake corrected gently. And I respected his decisions, even when I didn't agree with his methods. Why? Lily asked, unable to contain her anger. Why did you follow his rules? Blake slowed his pace, stopped, and without taking his eyes off Lily, took her hands in his. Because 30 years ago, your father saved my mother's life. What? Lily froze, not believing her ears. My mother was a journalist working for a small Boston newspaper. She exposed corruption within a pharmaceutical company that was trying to destroy her. Your father published her article in Patterson Herald. When no one else could, he offered her protection, work, a future. Blake's voice was thick with emotion. He offered me a future. Lily had never seen this side of Blake, vulnerable, sincere. I didn't know, she began, but she didn't have time to finish. How could you? Blake interrupted. But I owed him everything, and when he asked me for help, despite his unconventional parenting methods, I couldn't refuse. Blake squeezed her hands, but Lily looked away. I set a limit on not manipulating your heart. But here it is, Lily said, stepping aside. Are we still following your script? Do you think we're following you? Blake asked, his gaze so intense that Lily felt her heart pound. Was this real or just another trap? I need time to think, she said, stepping back. This is too much. Lily, please. Blake took her hand, but she pulled away. Just give me tonight. Without waiting for his answer, Lily hurried back to the gallery, apologized to the right people, and left in a taxi. Back home, she kicked off her heels and began nervously pacing the apartment. Her mind was racing. Her father had been playing with his destiny his entire life, and Blake had been both a pawn and a king in that game. And now she couldn't tell right from wrong. Her phone vibrated, a message from Blake. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'll be waiting. No pressure. No games. The message was a photo of an old newspaper clipping, a young woman with Blake's eyes, standing next to her father. Both were smiling, posing proudly under the headline. The Patterson Herald exposes pharmaceutical fraud and saves lives. Lily slumped onto the sofa, staring at her father, younger but with the same determined expression she saw in the mirror every day. What would he say now? What would he want her to do? The answer came to her with unexpected clarity. He would want her to make her choice based on truth, not manipulation. And the truth was, for all her anger and confusion, something unexpected had grown inside her, a connection to Blake Reynolds that couldn't be explained by business deals or complex schemes. The question now remained, was she brave enough to see where it would lead? 3 weeks had passed since that gala, and a new energy reigned at Patterson Media headquarters. Blake's innovation team had integrated Lily's traditional media services, creating digital platforms that adhered to journalistic principles while embracing cutting-edge technologies. Professionally, the collaboration had been a success. Stock prices were rising, employee morale was high, and industry analysts were calling it a perfect partnership. But the personal side remained complex. Lily was standing at her office window, watching the city lights twinkle in the evening, when her assistant's voice came over the intercom. Miss Patterson, Mr. Reynolds is here at 6 p.m. Lily took a deep breath. Let him in. Blake came in with 2 boxes of food. I brought dinner. I thought we'd be late checking the quarterly reports. Thank you, Lily said, gesturing toward the conference table. They had established a rigorous routine, professional collaboration by day, polite distance by night. In public, they maintained the illusion of a budding relationship, and in private, they respected the boundaries Lily had set after learning the truth. The board is impressed with the results of the podcast, Lily said during the meal. Your team did a great job. Our team, Blake corrected. Your content creators are the real stars. Lily couldn't help but smile. Over the past few weeks, she'd realized that Blake was not only brilliant, but also had a deep respect for the company's legacy and its people. 2 months down for it to go, Blake said casually. What are your plans for our future collaboration? Lily put down her fork. Actually, yes. Richard called today, wanting to know if we're going to move forward with the air. Blake remained unperturbed. And what did you say to him? We're still making a decision, Lily replied. But we need to give him something more specific, if not soon. Blake said cautiously. We have options. We can extend our business partnership indefinitely, without any personal ties. He slowed down his speech as if unsure of himself. Or, he continued, we could try a real date. No pretense, no professional discussions. Just the 2 of us. The offer hung in the air between them, as if undecided. After everything Lily had learned about her father, about Blake, about herself, she wasn't really sure what she wanted anymore. I don't know, she answered in a quiet, uncertain voice. A date, Blake insisted gently. If it's terrible, we'll go back to Plan A. Before Lily could answer, her phone rang. Seeing Megan's name, she excused herself and walked away. Hey, what happened? Turn on Channel 8 urgently. Megan's voice sounded insistent and tense. Lily picked up the remote and turned on the television in her office. The screen was filled with a scrolling banner that read, "Data leak scandal. Reynolds Tech accused of data exploitation." Blake was immediately at his side, his face pale as the reporter began to describe allegations that Reynolds Tech had secretly collected user data from partner companies, including Patterson Media. "This is absurd," Blake muttered. "Completely made up." Lily's phone was blowing up with calls and messages. "Board members, editors, Zach. I have to do this," she said to Blake, already dialing the number. "Lily, you have to believe me." "Not now, Blake," she interrupted, her walls immediately rising, cold and impenetrable. "Please go away." The pain in his eyes was palpable, but he nodded and left. The next 48 hours were chaotic. Despite Blake's denials and preliminary evidence proving the allegations false, Patterson Media's stock plummeted. "The board is calling an emergency meeting," Warren said, his voice stern and determined. "We must move away from Reynolds immediately. This partnership has always been too good to be true." Lily sat silently, carefully studying the preliminary investigation reports. "Miss Patterson," Warren insisted, "your father would never allow his company's reputation to be damaged in this way." Something inside Lily burst. "My father," she said, standing up, "believed in facts, not hysteria. And the facts don't support these accusations. But public opinion will change when we publish the truth." Lily interrupted. "What has Patterson Media always done exactly?" She looked around at the people present. "My father also believed in loyalty, in the importance of supporting people when it matters most. I will not abandon Blake, or leave this partnership based on unfounded accusations." After the meeting, Lily found Zach, who was already waiting for her in the office. "It was a powerful speech," he said. "Especially about loyalty." Lily sighed. "What do you need, Zach?" "I want to know, are you defending Blake Reynolds as a business partner or as a man you are falling in love with?" Lily froze. "I stand for the truth," she said firmly. Zach approached. "Are you sure? Because I think you're risking everything for someone who might not deserve it." "Why are you so against him?" Lily asked. "You've always been dissatisfied, suspicious." "Because I care about you," Zach blurted out. "You've always meant more to me, Lily, than just a friend." Lily looked at him, stunned. "Zach, you have nothing to say." "No," he said quickly. "Just be careful with your heart, and the company." After he left, Lily collapsed into a chair, exhausted. Her phone rang again. It was a text from Blake. "I found something. I'll be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, Blake was standing at his door, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "I know who's behind these accusations," he said without preamble, handing her the tablet. "Wesley Grant, your father's former director of operations." Lily flipped through the documents Blake had gathered. "Is he the one who left to start his own media company?" Lily asked. "Exactly," Blake confirmed. "He'd been planning this for months, fabricating evidence, spreading rumors. He wanted to ruin our partnership so he could buy Patterson Media cheap once the case was over." "But why?" Lily frowned, even though her mind was already beginning to put the pieces of the puzzle together. "Because your father didn't choose him as CEO," Blake replied firmly. "He chose you." Lily looked at Blake with the tablet in her hands. "How did you find out about all this?" "I have resources," he replied simply. "And motivation." "To clear your company's name?" Lily nodded. "No," Blake said in a softer voice. "To protect you." Their eyes met, and Lily felt the wall she'd erected between them crumble. "Why?" she whispered, unable to hide the curiosity that touched her. Blake stepped closer, looking more vulnerable than ever. "Because somewhere between the arguments and the game of love, I fell in love with you." The words hung in the air, as if they had drowned out everything around them. Lily froze, trying to understand what was happening. "Isn't this part of a plan?" she asked, seeking reassurance. "Isn't this another strategy?" "The only strategy left for me," Blake said, "is honesty." He reached out his hand, and this time Lily didn't move away. I love your passion, he continued, his voice soft but assured. Your determination, the way you fight for what matters to you. I love your stubbornness, your intelligence, and the way you become scary when you're angry. Despite everything? Lily laughed. Scary? Absolutely. Blake smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. And I think that's what your father saw in us. We complement each other, we challenge each other, we improve each other. Lily took a deep breath, finally realizing what she'd been feeling for weeks but was reluctant to admit. I think I'm falling in love with you too. Blake's smile was so bright it could have lit up the room. Slowly, respectfully, he gave her time to pull away, then he leaned in and kissed her, their first real kiss, without an audience, without pretense. When they finally broke apart, Lily pressed her forehead to his. And now? She asked softly. No, Blake said. We're going to take down Wesley Grant, save our businesses, and sort out the rest together. No storyline, no plot, just us. And the heir situation? Lily added with a sly expression. Blake laughed. Maybe we could save this conversation for the second date. Deal, Lily agreed, reaching out for another kiss. 1 year later, Lily stood in the garden of her father's now her own country house, watching Blake chase his 4-year-old daughter, Megan, across the lawn. The quarterly board meeting had turned into an impromptu barbecue, with the trustees and their families enjoying the summer day. He's good with kids, Zach remarked, approaching with a glass of lemonade. Yes, Lily agreed, smiling at her friend. Their relationship had been restored through honest conversation and time to heal. Digital expansion is booming, Zach said. Your dad would be proud. About the business or my personal life? Lily teased. Both, Zach laughed. Although he might have avoided the whole complicated thing if he'd known you'd handle it yourself. Lily turned the ring on her finger, the family heirloom Blake had given her 3 months earlier, on his knees in this very garden. I don't know, she said, looking thoughtfully at the ring. Dad always liked daring gestures. Blake ran towards her, slightly out of breath. Your cousin's daughter has more energy than our entire development team. Great workout, Lily joked, taking his hand. Blake's gaze always softened when she mentioned their future. By the way, he said softly, Dr. Bennett called. The results are in. Lily's heart leaped. They had begun fertility treatment 2 months earlier, deciding to start a family on their own terms rather than according to her father's wishes. Lily immediately asked, So what? Blake's face lit up with a bright smile. Positive. All systems go. Joy flooded her as Blake wrapped his arms around her and tossed her into the air in celebration. Over her shoulder, Lily saw her father's favorite oak tree, a small plaque at its base. Perhaps he had always known they needed more than just a business partnership, but a chance to connect outside of the boardroom. Thanks, Dad, she whispered as Blake set her down. What for? Blake asked, surprised. Lily smiled at her husband, once her enemy, then her partner, and now the love of her life. For that millionth mistake, which wasn't one after all.